Hi, good evening, everyone. I thank We Dravidian Facebook page for having me speak on live with all of you again. And I have to thank my brother and my relatives too for helping me out on this speech. Today, the topic in which I'm going to speak about is actually the forgotten history of the Dravidians and also their requirements in recent days. To start off with, I'm going to start off with one of the speeches which Mr. C.N. Annadurai gave once when a reporter asked him about how come what the reporter asked was how a 10-year-old party can form a government that easily. For that, C.N. Annadurai replied to the reporter stating that this is not a 10-year-old party. This is actually a party which was a continuity of the legacy of the Justice Party. And that's how this Dravidian parties all came into picture. The initial origination of this was from the Justice Party, and they were, with their help only today we are there. And today Dravidian parties are still in existence. They were the root for it. How to say, like they say it right, Rome was not built in a day. This is a clear example for our Dravidian parties too. It was not built in a day, and it was not easy for it to come up. So when I talk about these Dravidian parties, I have to take this as an era, like before Periyar and after Periyar. Before Periyar, only these Dravidian party members, and before that, another person was there too. So in before Periyar era, there were certain people, notable peoples, and I'm going to start off with an Britisher, Mr. Robert Cladwell. He was the one who gave an elaborate meaning for the name Dravidians. After Robert Cadwell, the person who showed interest to improve the lives of Dravidians, people who were, especially those people who were not given, uh, especially to the people who were not given chances to improve in their life. Mr. Ayoti Dasar. Ayoti Dasar actually helped these people to was the first person from the Dravidian movement to help these people. To speak about Mr. Ayoti Dasan, his original name was Kathavarayan, and he took the name Ayoti Dasar from as a respect of to show to his teacher. His teacher is the person who guided him, and made him a person who's now been a biggest idol for everyone. So Mr. Ayati Dasan tried a lot of ways to make all the Tamilians, all the Dravidians together, and for that he used the terms Tamil Dravidan in all of his speeches. Ayati Dasan, Mr. Pandit Ayati Dasan has to speak about the untouchabilities and caste discriminations. He collabed with Reverend John Ratinam, and he made a weekly journal called Dravidia Pandian. Egg. And also, one of the Mr. Ayoti Dasar played a very vital role in the lives of a particular group of people. They were the Adi Dravidians. He named these people as Adi Dravidians because he considered them as the original Dravidian peoples who exist. And to help them, he collaborated with Rettimali Srinivasan. Both Ayoti Dasar and Rettimali Srinivasan joined together for improving the lives and bringing social justice for these people. And in the future, the Justice Party also made a lot of efforts to improve the lives of, and also currently the Dravidian parties too are having a biggest aim to improve their lives and make them achieve lots in their life. And I have to say, Pandit Ayati Dasar is actually a pioneer for all of the Dravidian movements. Without Pandit Ayati Dasar, we can't imagine. He was the biggest seed for the Dravidian movement, and without him, we can't imagine a Dravidian parties or Dravidian rule or Dravidism in our state, in our not only in our state, in our country. So next, I'm going to elaborate about four major idols in the justice of the Justice Party. To start off with this four important peoples of the Justice Party. The first person in my actually we in Chennai. I'm currently in Chennai. If I have to go to a place in Chennai for getting lots of best shopping places in Chennai is actually T Nagar. From the start I didn't know about the name of when I was small. I didn't know about the term. Why was it called T Nagar? But it was in representative for it actually represented a person's name who is P.T. Tyagaraja Chetty. This person was one of the important and he played a vital role in the lives of in the lives of many Dravidian parties for the improvement of their lives. And Mr. Tyagaraja Chetty, his name was, and from his name only they kept it for T Nagar. Also, the first person to implement the mid-meal scheme for schools was Mr. P.T. Tyagarajan. Pocket, he helped serve people, like for the people who are going to schools, for poor people, they go to schools and for the sake of food at that time. So he thought that why should they be affected, and he made a contribution out of his pocket and helped them in getting the day-to-day meal. After that, Mr. Kamaraj did it, but he was the first person to introduce that scheme. But in 1937, after the Congress government coming into picture, this rule was removed, and after that, only Kamarajar came up with this rule, and it was widespread over the state. And to talk about Mr. P.T. Tyagarajan, the main goal of Justice Party, I'll come from there. The main role of Justice Party comes up from, like, when India was fighting for justice from the Britishers, they were fighting for social justice along with social justice over here. So, in so the people over here were fighting for social justice and also for independence too. Mr. P.T. Tyagaraja Chetty played a vital role in this. He actually was a member of the Indian National Congress. Due to the dominance of certain upper caste people, he quit the Indian National Congress and he joined with T.M. Nair and C. Natarajan. These two people, I'm going to speak about them in the upcoming session now, in some time. But there are some good things that we have to remember about Mr. P.T. Tyagarai Chetty. 1 minute. And one of the major support for Mr. P.T. Tyagarajan was one of the major works which Mr. P.T. Tyagarajan did was P.T. Tyagarajan actually he did many social works, and some of them I will and colleges for poor people. So he built the Tyagaraja College, and also he joined hands with Annamalai Chettiar, and he made both of them built the Annamalai University. He was the one who came up with the idea for beggars rehabilitation scheme. He built a school for blinds. He built schools for blinds, and out of his own hands money, he also made the mid-meal scheme, which was then started again from the Congress team, Congress party. Actually, to say frankly, one of the strongest seeds in Justice Party and for the Dravidian roots is Mr. P.T. Tyagarajan. And unfortunately, many of us have forgotten him, like how we have forgot Aditi Dasa too. Next, I'm going to speak about Mr. T.M. Nair. Mr. T.M. was the doctor who shaped the Dravidian movements. today. In 1868, he was born in Palakkad. He had a desire to become a doctor and he became a doctor. But at that time, there was a criteria that we have to know Sanskrit to become a doctor. So somehow, with all difficulties, he became a doctor. And once he became a doctor, during his days in Madras, he used to go attend patients in the morning sessions, and in the afternoon he went and studied in the library for hours in variety of subjects. Mr. T.M. Nair was also, not only in the service of, not only he did a big contribution in medicine, he also was collaborated with the Indian National Congress. Mr. P.T. Tyagarajan, due to upper caste domination and seeing this with his bare eyes, Mr. T.M. Nair quit Indian National Congress, and he was also waiting for a chance to open a new uh, non-Brahminic party. And when they started of thinking to start off a new party, there was actually two parties. Mr. T.M. Nair had one party, and P.T. Tyagaraja Chetty had one party. Non-Brahmin parties, two were there. These two always had a quarrel between them. They had lots of fights with them, argument fights. So Mr. T.M. Nair and P.T. Tyagarajan, both of them stood for an election separately in 1916, and they both lost drastically. And hence, another person called Mr. C. Nattesan, he believed that if these two pillars, T.M. Nair and P.T. Tyagaraja Chetty, if they both come along, this will make a united power, and this will form a great league, and surely they will win the upcoming election. So Mr. C. Nattesan was hoping that one day they will join, and as he thought, they joined one day. And how did they join? It was not very easy for them to join. So after losing these elections, they both came together, Mr. T.M. Nair and P.T. Tyagaraja Chetty, and Mr. C. Nattesan too. All of these three, and along with them, there were many more people. Around 38 people were there who formed this Justice Party. But before Justice Party, they made a movement called South. They made a movement called the South. South Indian Liberal Foundation. This was the first movement which they organized, and after that, this party was named as Justice Party. How the name Justice Party? It got the name Justice Party from the journal which they launched called the Justice. Tyagaraja Then what happened is that both T.M. Nair and P.T. Tyagarajan came along with each other. They started this party. They did a lot of social works, and they got a good name in the people's mind. And after this, the root. This is where the root for Dravidian movements came up. People over here started to think about the Dravidian movements and how these people are helping us. This is the start for everything. And the sad part for Mr. T.N. Nair was that in 1920s, actually the Justice Party won there. The Justice Party won in the elections, and they got. But Mr. T.M. Nair was not present in 1919 during his visit to London. Due to some heart attack issues, he passed away. He wasn't able to witness how Justice Party won, the party which he was a member of, and the party which he was aiming to achieve a lot in life. How did it come up? He wasn't able to see that. That's one of the biggest, saddest things that ever to happen. Then next I speak about Mr. C. Nattesan. Mr. C. Nattesan was born in Tiruvallur, studied for doctor. He actually studied for doctor. The best part of Mr. C. Nattesan was that he saw many poor non-Brahmic people in the streets, and he didn't want that to happen to anyone. So for that, Mr. C. Natesan, Mr. C. Natesan, people who were in the streets, brought those poor people who were living in the streets, gave them shelter. And as time passed, he named the shelter as the Dravida Illam. Dravida Illam. He also provided education, food, clothes on his own cost for them. He, at a particular time, he came to know that without the power of politics, there's nothing that we can achieve. So, Mr. C. Natesanar actually went into politics, and he was also one of the biggest pillars in Justice Party and made them win. Justice Party came into power while he was there. So, one of the best things about Mr. C. Natesan was that he spoke a lot for the rights of Adi Dravidas, abolishment of untouchability, and 1918 itself. He was one of the biggest pillars for improvement of non-Brahminic lives. The next person on the list is Mr. Panakal Arasan. He was originally called Panankatti Ramarayan Nagar. He actually studied law in Chennai Law College. Um, his he was very aspirant in public services. He did a lot of public services, and he was very attached to the Dravidian movements. So he joined hands with the Dravidian party at the beginning stage, and stood as one of the pillars for it. In 1920, when the Dravidian party won the elections, Mr. Pitti Tyagarajan was approached to become the CM, but he didn't accept it, and he showed another person to become it, and that was Mr. Su Reddy. But what happened next was that Mr. Subbarayalu Reddy didn't accept that post. After 6 months, he resigned that post, and this post came to Mr. Panakal Arasan. And one of the he dedicated his whole life for Mr. Panakal Arasan dedicated his whole life for the non-Brahminic community, and he wanted to improve their lives too. But we should always remember Mr. Panakal Arasan for one thing. He should be remembered for the reservation system introduced in 1921, which is the first in history by a person of an elected legislative body to give an act out. A reservation system which was first given out by Mr. Panakal Arasan. And another important history. Now I just spoke about the Dravidian parties before. Now and after that, Mr. Justice Party won from 1920s to 1937, 1920s to 1937, and then losing in the 1937 election to the Congress Party. It then went to a name to Dravida Kalagam, because it never recovered again. Sad truth, but it became Dravida Kalagam. But the ideologies were still there. It never vanished from there. So then Periyar took the Dravida Kalagam as a social movement. He didn't social reform movement. He actually didn't make it as a political party. This Dravida Kalagam, about the Dravida Kalagam, many of us have spoken a lot about it, but I have to mention certain important history things which we are forgetting. I will tell you about two incidents, okay, which I came along while studying. Is that one of the most important thing which we people today have forgotten totally, and we didn't consider that as a big thing, and we're easily moving on forward. Actually, when I went through this specific article, actually I had a feeling that, oh my god, why haven't I thought about this? Why haven't I told about this? Actually, it was very In Tamil they say நம்ம உணர்ச்சி வசமான ஒரு விஷயம், that they say in Tamil. Like that, I got very emotional after reading this article. Actually, this this is one of the biggest protests in the Dravidian by the Dravidian parties. Not only by the Dravidian parties, even youngsters, many youngsters joined hand for this protest. This was actually called the Hindi Edirippu Poratam. Till date, Hindi Edirippu Nal, that is December 3rd, has been a remembrance day for Hindi Edirippu Poratam that happened before, earlier in 1930s and also in 1965. Hindi Edirippu Poratam, where did this Hindi anti-Hindi agitation start from? Actually, at 1937, that then CM Mr. Rajagopalachari made Hindi compulsory. Once this order came into the limelight, peoples of the Tamil peoples and the Dravidian people's feelings were highly affected, but they didn't consider it that much. And notably, two people, Mr. Nadarasan and Talamuttu, during this protest, they gave up their lives. And after this, this protest became a big thing, and everybody started protesting along with Periyar. Around thousands of have been arrested. On seeing this big protest, on witnessing this big protest, Mr. CM Rajagopalachari withdrew this act. But we lost many lives, and I told you about two, Nadarasan and Talamuttu. This didn't stop here. Then Hindi was made as an official language in 1950s when we got independence. Always, in Tamil also they say, Tamilnale poradiye ellathiyum vellanum. Like that, this thing didn't stop. It always came along with us. Where it comes again is in 1950s, when they started to make this as an official language. There was a big protest, and on seeing that, they told that only for 15 years this protest will be there. Hindi, sorry, not the protest, this scheme will be there only for 15 years, from 1950s to 1965 only. The scheme will be only you can use English as an official language, and after that you have to use Hindi as an official language. For the 15 years it was silent, and on the 15th year this protest again started, because all the officers again started to use Hindi. This was actually called, we should say, this is imposing. This is imposing. We are not actually studying about the history properly, and we are speaking like as if we know everything nowadays. In everywhere we have to read the history properly. Many people forgot this, because over here, on a specific time in 1965, a person called Chinnasamy, and 1965, this person, Mr. Chinnasamy, burnt himself alive. Before burning himself, he says, "E Tamile, nee vaala na thudithu saagiren." That means, for Tamil to live, he is going to give up his life. See how much it's emotional. Tamil is emotionally bond with us. Like the same, another person, Sivalingam, went and died. Two Annamalai College students, Rajendran and Sivalingam, were beaten to death by the police. Around 70 members died during this protest in 1965. After deaths only, the government recognized, after deaths and many protests, only this government recognized that this is not good and we should stop it. Still, people from not only in Tamil Nadu, from elsewhere too, they if we only give up their lives, they're attaining what they want. And over here, after this, once the government gave up this rule that English can also be, and you can use Tamil, we won't impose in everything, there the Dravidian rule starts, and the Dravidian parties start to win again. I have to say, mention it again. But after that, Dravidian parties came to power on that date forever, and I stress it again, and forever. And another article which I read recently, I have the notes about it. A recent article which I went through. One second. Okay. There was actually a scheme in 1953, a scheme to change the education policy. In that scheme, I came to know certain points were still happening. Many of the nothing in the past has stopped. It's still continuing. I have to say about certain points like this. I have noted these points so that I should be correct on it. In this new education policy 1953, this is the perfect name. We can even search on online sites also. There's also an article too. Students were divided into batches to learn. Okay, so like till certain period of time they will be learning, and after a certain period of time of the day they have to go to work. And this helped only a specific community. Only a specific community was meant to learn, study for long hours, and they don't have to do work after some time. This was actually to be stated as a caste policy. And this was actually a dictatorial policy as it did not consult with the state. It was, as per the constitution, we are actually a republic. We have all independence, democracy, everything we have. But this policy was not consulted with the states. States were never given a chance to be consulted with. This targeted rural schools. And also, to be more specific with, this was an indirect imposition of Hindi. This was actually a centralized policy and denies all the state rights. We don't have any rights on this. We won't get a chance from the state to talk about it. So this was the NEP 1953 scheme, which was highly told as Kulakalvi Thittam. Now also, there was something similar to it, and many people in the place in which we are living also are supporting for it. I don't know why. There's many people who are thinking that this is good for them, but I will mention that in the end, towards the end. All right. So I'm just going to speak in my regional language for some time in Tamil. What I'm going to say is that இந்தியாவில் நிறைய மாற்றம் வந்துருச்சு. பட் குவாலிட்டிங்கிற பேர்ல நிறைய பேரை நம்ம குறைச்சி எடை போட்டுக்கிட்டு இருக்கோம். அவங்களுக்கு நிறைய சாதிக்கிற திறமை இருந்தாலும் நம்ம குவாலிட்டி இல்லைன்னு எல்லாரையும் இறக்கி வச்சுட்டு பேசிக்கிட்டு இருக்கோம். நம்ம ஒருத்தவங்களை அதுக்கு முன்னுக்கு உற வச்சாதான் அவங்களுக்கு குவாலிட்டி வரும். அவங்கள்ட்ட இருந்து என்ன வரும் நம்மளுக்கு தெரிய வரும். நம்ம அந்த முன்னுக்கே வரவிடாம அவங்களை தடுத்துட்டா அது வராது. அப்புறம் இன்னைக்கு நம்ம அரசு சட்டங்கள் நிறைய அதை ஸ்டாப் பண்ணிக்கிட்டு இருக்கு நான் பார்த்த வரைக்குமே. ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள், இந்த NEP 2020 அப்படின்னு ஒரு ரூலுக்கு நான் முன்னாடி சொன்ன NEP 1953க்கும் சில பல சிமிலாரிட்டிஸ் இருக்கு. லைக் they target 50%. The target is 50% GER by 2035. But already Tamil Nadu is having 49% of it. After fifth standard, students are made to get internship like potteries in mechanics and electrics. I think so. The first point in which I told in NEP quite similar to it. But if I say this is that many people will state that it's wrong. This actually helps only a certain group of people who has money, but it won't help other groups of people who are not having that much of money. And also, there's one thing over here that it targets rural areas where in certain rural areas we have people like only one teacher. If we bring this act in, these teachers and these schools will be stopped. And what will happen is, if a school is at a long distance, for a person, if there is a school at around 5 kilometers away from his place, and he's currently at this place, like in Chennai in some place, and this school is in Kanjipuram. If he has to go to there, he will think about all the transport charges and everything, and what he will do if he doesn't have money, he won't go there. But we already have, for 100 students, we had one teacher in nearby schools, but this act will stop that, NEP. This is also kind of like a centralized act. There was no big difference in NEP and NEP 2020 and NEP 1953. I have to say, I have to quote one of the things which I came across. That too I will stay. Now for some time I will talk in Tamil. ஒரு காலத்துல டிஎம் நாயர் அவர்கள் எம்பிபிஎஸ் படிக்கிறதுக்கே சான்ஸ்கிரிட் தேவைப்பட்டிருக்கு. இன்னைக்கு குவாலிட்டி தேவைப்படுது. ரெண்டு வித்தியாசம் இல்லாத மாதிரி எனக்கு ஃபீல் ஆகுது. நிறைய பேருக்கு நான் பேசுறது தப்பா இருக்குமான்னு தெரியல, பட் எனக்கு அந்த பெரிய வித்தியாசமே இல்லாத மாதிரி தெரியுது. அந்த காலத்துல நான் இப்ப இந்த ஹிஸ்டரி ஆஃப் டிராவிடியன் பீப்புள் பத்தி பேசும்போது அந்த காலத்துக்கும் இந்த காலத்துக்கும் நிறைய சிமிலாரிட்டிஸ் தான் நான் பாக்குறேன். திருப்பி நம்ம ஆல்ரெடி முன்னுக்கு வந்துட்டு திருப்பி நம்மளுக்கு குறைக்கிற மாதிரியே சில விஷயங்கள் வந்துகிட்டு இருக்குன்னு எனக்கு படுது. ஒரு இடத்துல இவங்க குவாலிட்டி பத்தி பேசு, பெரியார் ஒரு இடத்துல சொல்லுவாரு, தகுதியை வளர்க்கறதுக்குலாம் பள்ளிக்கு போவோம், படிக்க போவோம். ஆனா பள்ளிக்கு போறதுக்கே தகுதியா அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு நாள் வந்துச்சுன்னா நம்மளுக்கு ரொம்ப கஷ்டமா போயிரும் பாரு. அதே மாதிரி இப்ப நடந்துகிட்டு இருக்கு. நாங்க சில பேர் இன்னைக்கு வந்துட்டு முன்னுக்கு வரணும்னா, நிறைய பேர் இன்னைக்கு முன்னுக்கு வரணும்னா அது ஒரு தகுதி வேணுங்கிறாங்க. அங்க போயிட்டு தகுதி அறைகளாங்க தான் பார்க்கணும். அது வந்துட்டு இப்ப எக்ஸாம்ஸ், நீட் அந்த மாதிரி நிறைய விஷயங்கள் வச்சு அதை முடக்கடிச்சுக்கிட்டு இருக்காங்க. இப்ப நான் கூட இங்கிலீஷ்ல ரொம்ப நேரம் பேசும்போது நிறைய பேருக்கு புரிஞ்சிருக்கும் நான் என்ன பேச வந்தேன், எது சொல்ல வந்தேன்ட்டு. பட் நான் திடீர்னு தமிழ்ல பேசணும்னா நிறைய பேருக்கு புரிஞ்சிருக்காது. பிகாஸ் English is very common among us. That's why many people understood about English, what I'm speaking. When I change to my regional language, they won't understand what I'm speaking. This is how the third language scheme is all about. When I already know English, and many of the viewers over here also know English, they can understand me when I'm speaking in English. But English to one of my languages, regional language, they won't understand. So what they will say, you can learn Hindi for that. But also I can't speak Hindi with a person who only knows Telugu, a person who only knows Kannadam. If he knows English, I will speak with him because he knows English here. So why can't English be a link language, as Mr. C.N. Annadurai said? And I want to end this by saying that one of the quotes that many people over here in recent times are saying that they will come to power, they will change what all the Dravidian rules was. But Dravidian rules have done many good things for the people today, and we are just forgetting them as days pass. One of the quotes which Mr. Annadurai said was that, இன்னைக்கு நான் ஆட்சியில் இருக்கலாம், நாளைக்கு வேற யாராச்சும் இடத்துக்கு வரலாம், ஆனா நான் நினைச்சதை மாத்தணும்னு நினைச்சா மக்கள் போராடுவாங்க, மக்கள் எழுச்சி உண்டாகும், ஆட்சி கவுளுங்கிற பயம் வரும். அந்த பயம் இருக்கிற வரைக்கும் அண்ணாதுரை ஆசியம் அப்படின்னு மிஸ்டர் அண்ணாதுரை சொல்லியிருப்பார். So I'm ending this conversation saying that please don't judge a person by what kind of quality he has. Give him what we have, what he wants, and see how he comes up with it. Ban NEET and ban NEP. Thank you.